work.
Okay.
You know, this is getting really tricky.
Allow it.
Oh my god, my mouse is up there. This is a sad display of incompetence. Alright.
Alright. So we are Shift Soap. This is us. I'm Abby. We can go down one.
I'm Sterling. I'm Stephen.
I'm Felix. I'm Celine. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Isaac Zunda.
Alright, so these are some trends of the growth of bike commuting from the year 2000 to 2011. Seattle's not on here, but as we can see, it's gone up like huge. Like it's such a trend. Next slide. Here we have the U.S. Census from 2012 showing bike commuters. Seattle was ranked 4th for the biggest amount of bicycle commuting. Yes, next slide. And here we have an idea of just how many commercial buildings, that's what that is, have bicycle amenities in them in the greater Seattle area. All right, so our slogan is always shifting forward. We are a bike soap brand that specializes in communicating with the biker. Our goal is to align the trends to create a brand that people will associate with Specialized or Trek. Those are some biking companies that we want to be next to. We want a logo that, can you go back? I'm sorry.
Of course.
We want a logo that evokes speed, simplicity, and industrial power. The sleek lines visualize speed that can only be replicated on a pair of wheels. The black and white is simple but pleasing, just like our product. All right, wow. Okay. Our brand promises to deliver high quality and trustworthy products with a focus in simplifying the cleaning process for bicyclists. Our handmade soaps will be distributed to local bike shops, and once operational, our marketing style will be simplistic, unlike flashy, eye-catching marketing of stereotypically low-quality products. Here we have a bit of our visual library. Our personality, like I've said, is speed, power, efficiency, simplicity, quality, and industrial.
All right, switch out. Market definition. All right, slide. Thank you. All right, so our audience was the avid biker, and specifically, but not limited to, avid road bikers on the Burke-Gilman Trail. So the reason for choosing this audience specifically was we wanted a sample demographic that would stay consistent and we could use as a user base to test our products. But we knew that in order for our soap to be successful, we also needed to branch out because of our soap's properties, it worked well for grease cutting in general. So we are not limiting ourselves to just the Burke-Gilman Trail, but that is our sample. So we also wanted to fall in line with kind of the whole idea of a trend. So as Abby pointed out earlier, we kind of have a trendy, biking has become a little bit of a trend recently. So we wanted to present ourselves as kind of that cool business that is aligned with, some of the younger bikers out there in Seattle. So our soap specifically was built for roadside repair and grease cutting. So it's designed to be brought with you while you're biking, and if your chain falls off or something happens, you have to fix your bike. Well, your soap will be there for you to cut that grease once you need to get back on the road and to wherever you're going to. Slide. All right, so our surveys. We did 31 surveys in total. And specifically what I'm talking about here is our initial surveys. So these were asking what our demographic wanted from a bike soap. So specifically, they wanted something that could cut grease, could kind of help negate dirt, keep that off your hands. And there wasn't a lot of interest in scent. They figured that practicality was more important. Is that a word? Can I use that? All right, thank you. And they wanted a hand soap, something, like hard that you could carry around with you. Slide. All right, so as for our competitors, we actually didn't have that many. There were no competitors that we could find that was a soap specifically for field use. The one that we could find was called Donkey Label, and this was actually like a washing soap for the shower or whatnot, but it specifically had grease cutting capabilities as well. So this leaves a lot of potential because we anticipate that we have a relatively open market of, untapped potential users. Thank you.
Okay, so for our financials, we had two types of cost, our variable cost and then our fixed cost. And for each bar of soap, it would be about $2 to make, plus 50 cents for the case, which we just figured out, so that's why it's not on there. And then for the fixed cost, it would be $875 plus a $500 down payment for a 3D printer. Our goal would be to have a high-end utilitarian soap, and because of this, we would sell our soap at a premium. We would, this is how our cost breaks down. So, and then on the side here, it's mostly our fixed cost things, but there wasn't enough space to put it all on one steady graph. So where would we sell? We would sell at specifically bike stores. Like, we wouldn't want to sell at multi-purpose stores, or we would want to sell just like at bike stores, which would give a sense of like good quality and one specific use. And then we would distribute it in a small quantity because the price point would be a little bit higher. We would plan on selling at $7 per bar, which would give us a $4.50 net profit per bar. So in order to start up, we would need $875, and the math, how it works would be we would make about 5.84 bars of soap a day, but really that's not very possible, so we would make about 6 bars most days, and within a month, if we sold them all, that would have us paying off our startup costs.
Okay, so I'll be talking about our original design, and this is kind of our brainstorming process. We kind of started at the beginning. What are we going to make a soap? What sort of things are we marketing to? We had options for soccer moms. We had options for other sort of gender and sexual orientation soaps. And then we narrowed it down. To something to do with bikes. And we're like, we want to have a soap that would clean bikes. So I talked to my dad and I asked some other people, and they said, no, you never want to use soap to clean your bikes so it'll mess up the paint, all this sort of things like that. You don't really want to clean your bike with the soap. And you want to keep the parts that you think would be clean. You want to keep them greased so they work well. The chain and the gears, you don't want to wash all that stuff off. So then we said, now we're going to see if we can use a liquid soap. But then we thought that might be too difficult to carry with us. So then we kind of transitioned to a bendable soap. That was kind of when we were talking about cleaning the bikes. We interviewed someone and they said, oh yeah, some of the parts are really hard to clean on my bike, so maybe a moldable soap would allow you to get in some hard to reach spots. And we would have used silly putty and kind of blended together. We didn't really think through that. So we never actually tried that, so we moved to another scent, and we tried maybe some sort of grapefruit or lavender scented soap, and then people we talked to, they said, no, we're bikers, we're commuter bikers, we're kind of like cool, we don't really want our hands smelling like lavender when we show up to work, you know? So they said, cut the scent. So then we said we're going to try and make it from lard and olive oil. Next slide. After a lot of interviews, we figured out that a lot of people already have ways that they clean their bikes, and that there was already a market towards bikes, so we didn't want to compete with that per se. So we said, why don't we market it towards something that would clean our hands? Because when you do a field repair, like Sterling was saying, you get grease all over your hands, and then you show up to work and you have to go to the bathroom, you have to scrub for a long time. So we wanted to make our soap something that would be efficient and easy to use and easy to clean that grease off your hands when you get to work. So through our interviews, and we had many implementations, and we started off with lard, and here's kind of pictures of coconut oil versus lard. When you see coconut oil, you kind of think, oh, coconuts, kind of natural, palm trees, it's kind of nice. And then when you think lard, you think kind of, I mean, lard is fat. Nobody really wants to wash their hands with dead animals. I mean, it doesn't really, it doesn't really, when you think of lard, the kind of the association is not quite as clean and fresh as coconut oil. And, as I'll talk about later, the coconut oil actually foamed up a lot more, and it kind of acted more like a soap, and it didn't leave nasty residue like the lard did. And we considered lemon juice initially, but we never really added that because the acid and the base in our the base we use, the lye, would kind of act with each other. That would be too complicated. So we made the soap hard because it's easier to transport, and we added a case so that after you kind of used it and it was a little bit dirty, you could put it back in the case, put it back in your bag, and it wouldn't get everywhere inside of your bag. So we had a lot of interviews, and we kind of saw what the consumers wanted, and we changed our soap to make it something that they like. And now Isaac will be talking about our final note.
All right. So essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap up all that interview information is near to sort of shape the general direction of our product, give us a direction and told us what the consumers were down with, what they weren't. Just to elaborate on that, we did a Google form. If you guys are unfamiliar with that, it was similar to SurveyMonkey. We posted on Reddit, we emailed it to our friends. We got about 20 interviews from real bikers, and we incorporated all of that. That's how we made the previous decision. So this is not just asking like, us and doing stuff like that. This is real market data that real people who have no association with us and are unbiased are using. So that was a pretty good way to get the information now. If you can tell, here is our soap case. So it is pretty different than a traditional soap case in of that there is no excess here. It's utilitarian. This is made on a 3D printer. If you guys don't know what that is, it takes plastic and layers it hundreds and hundreds of times until it can make a case. As you can see here, this has been printed into a case. So this actually helps encourage a certain part of our product. The fact that it is chic and durable and pretty dang utilitarian. You guys can pass that around if you want. So we have no excess in our product labeling. Our product labeling is very to the point because we don't want this soap to be something that is necessarily kept in your house. We actually added a carabiner clip on our case. We 3D printed that in so that you could carry it with you. You can carry it on your bike and you can carry it on the go. This soap is for someone who is working and is being active, needs to get their hands clean before a day of work. So as you can see here, these top two images, that is our 3D model. We designed all of this in a CAD program, which actually has some pretty great implementations. If there is a problem with the design, I can make small changes to a file, and immediately I can print a new version which will reflect those changes. There's no changing in manufacturing or machinery. So for you guys, from an investing standpoint, that's amazing. That kind of dynamic and modular change is super key to creating a product that responds really well to different users' feedback. So the way we make our model is actually fairly similar. We 3D print a model. We 3D print a model that looks just like that, and then we cast it in something called Umu. So what that allows us to do is it allows us to create pretty effectively a soap that's holds its shape. So if you can see here, our final soap looks somewhat like this. There's another one that's going around in there, but it reflects the shape of a bike wheel. With our soap, we wanted, the reason why we made it look like a bike wheel is pretty simple. We wanted sort of a key characteristic to our soap that people could remember and latch onto, and we obviously want them to latch onto biking. So if someone was washing their hands with our soap, and someone else comes in, talking to them, sees the soap, we want them to immediately think this is a biking soap. So that's pretty much the reason why we did that, and that's how all of this works. Next slide, please. So you might be wondering, hey, we got this marketing idea, right? But why do we do it like this? What is the science behind this? And there are two key things that were influenced by labs, two crucial points in our soap that were helped by science. The first one is how the soap feels. So how a soap feels can pretty much be based on one factor, the ratio of fatty acid moles to moles of the base that you're using. And essentially what that does is if you have more of the fatty acid, it will create an oilier soap that leaves a little more, it feels a little bit more moisturizing. But if you have more of the base, what it does is that creates a drier soap that leaves your hands a little bit more clean feeling. Now this is not necessarily to do with effectiveness, but this is pretty key for product placement and how it feels after you use it. So we experimented with this and we got testers. And essentially what you can see here is people, votes are bad in this. Our testers voted on which soap they liked the least and traits they liked the least. We evaluated for 3 traits: the most oil, the driest milk, whichever took the longest to clean. So the soap that has the least votes is effectively the victor. And essentially figured out that a 3.5 ratio of the base to 1 part of the oil was the ideal because it was oily and pretty soapy and lathery when you're washing your hands, but afterwards you felt clean, not too dry, but not too oily. So that was how one of the important decisions was made about the chemistry of our soap. Next, we can move on to what oil we use our soap. Now, while we do care about what Zamir talked about, we don't want you to be washing your hands with a dead animal. That's a little disgusting for the user. That wasn't really the main reason why we did that. What we wanted is we wanted effective soap. We don't really care about the ingredients used as long as it works. That's kind of our thing. So we wanted to make sure it works. So we used lard and coconut oil, 2 of the most common soaps, and they work fairly similarly. So they, we didn't want to be testing with things that were of sort of different solidities, but pretty similar solidity. So what we did was we created soaps with both of those that had users wash their hands and rank on a scale of 1 to 10 how bubbly the soap was. Because although you may not think this, the bubbliness of a soap subconsciously affects how you think about that soap. A bubbly soap, you feel subconsciously like it's making your hands a lot more clean because you can see the soap actively working. So we wanted to make a very bubbly soap. So, and in our tests, it was just an amazing result. The coconut oil made our soap significantly more bubbly, these massive bubbles. It seemed very clean. So this is why we ultimately just use coconut oil over lard. Thanks.
Okay, so the future outlook. So where to from here? So in the future, we have a vision for our company. What we would like to continue to change to develop our company in the future. We first want to perfect our balance in our soap between exfoliant materials and oil. So as Isaac stated, we have perfected that, but we would like to make it even more precise to make the user experience as good as it can possibly be. And the second thing that we want to improve in the future is to make the case out of black carbon fiber and to kind of have it like sleek, nice, smooth texture to it. And we also wanted to have nicer labels to be able to be a part of the case instead of just being stuck on. So that is our future outlook. And then we also perhaps would add a color or scent if we had additional feedback telling us that they actually wanted some. So that is one of our, those are some possible improvements slide. And then we also expect our company to expand. So in the future, we think that once our soap is out there and in the market, we plan to sell in bike stores, grocery stores, and even online to whoever wants it. And once our soap takes hold, we are also considering to start a soap for mechanics to wash grease off their hands. So that is a different line and branch. So that's the future.
So before we take questions real quick, I think as a group you guys are, probably there's a lot of high intellectual function in this group. I would say you guys have a ton of great ideas. I would be careful when you're giving presentations about how much information you include in the slide. Think about, can you sum up those points to make them a little bit more impactful? So just kind of keeping that in mind moving forward. Otherwise, I think you guys had a lot of great data, lots of good points during the project. And you guys put a ton of time into looking at different labs and looking at different ways of making your models. And I think there was some really good market development early on where you guys, like you said, you first thought about one market and then eventually settle on the market that you had. So I think you put a lot of good thought and time into that. Megan, do you want to go first?
I'm always so eager to start off talking. I love the logo. The logo, 100% originally conceived by you guys.
The logo was actually.
Logo type and everything?
What we did is we actually outsourced our logo to Samir's friend, who produced a
Very
couple
nice.
different variations of the same idea, and we chose which one we thought was the most aesthetically pleasing for our product.
Good job. Did I see that you had, you were planning on using a 3D printer for the initial cases?
Yeah, for the cases, yeah, and in the future, as far as we, yeah.
So would it be possible to imprint this actual logo right into the lid of, and have it be in the box?
Given more time, we could have,
Given more time.
but, we didn't have
Yeah.
time
We would
to
have
go
loved to do
over
that.
that
That
and
was the
remake
idea,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, and so just from a presentation standpoint though, I would love to see something that was glued on. I know it's prototype phase, but even just something that's a little bit more flatly glued, so
Yeah.
the edges weren't flipping off and, more,
Yeah.
That case
well
is more of
applied
a
label.
proof of concept, like,
Yeah,
that would not be our retail case.
yeah.
Right.
We actually, our
Totally
plan was to actually engrave it, as you were talking about earlier. Those, the paper on there is more of trying to like signify, this is what it would look like, you know. There's obviously some technical things to work out.
Yes.
So is it kind of pretty, you can use two separate nozzles with two different colors. Our ideal product would have those exact same things or something similar,
Yeah.
but they would be painted with a second black nozzle on a white or gray case.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Hey, I will say that I thought this was a really neat concept, a really neat idea, a pretty, like a market that I felt like I could identify with as a commuter, so I thought that was pretty neat. And I think that you guys did a very good job, providing what information you needed. Yeah, sometimes it was like, oh, maybe a little too much, but it was still very informative, it was good. So much so that I'm like actually thinking about your concept, and I'm like, okay, how would this actually work? Not just like, oh, is it a candle, and so forth. And a few things that I'm coming up with is, you mentioned one, a soap that you carry with you, and two, going back to more of your kind of image board. So I want to touch on both of those two things. The first one, there are two different kind of markets, I guess you could say, when you're talking about commuters, right? You said you wanted to identify with like specialized in Trek, which generally is going to be like the weekend warrior, parents, and whatever else. Like, it seems to me like you want the commuter. You want the guy that's out there and they're riding their little fixie around and stuff like that. That's what you guys are looking for, right? Okay, so trying to think of getting to know that market a little bit more, that you can see the difference between those two. Because if you're trying to market the more the weekend warrior, you're going to get something different. And then, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, just
Okay,
real quick
good.
thing. So I personally, I kind of was one of the group members who initially kind of asked if we could do something about bikes, and it's because I personally am a biker. Now, the catch is I'm a mountain biker, and to me, those are really high quality brands
Yeah, for sure.
that, race-ready downhill mountain bikers would use. So even though our demographic, our sample demographic was avid road cyclists and commuters, when I made that slide, or actually when Abby made that slide, we were kind of thinking that, I guess I had a little bit of a skewed perspective.
But that was your starting point. That totally makes sense, yeah. And
Like
then,
a quick
go
follow-up
ahead.
to that would be like, what percentage of commuters take a shower when they get to work?
That's,
They're probably not gonna need it. I certainly took a shower when I commuted. I don't know the answer to that.
So
So if 80% take a shower,
Well, then they could take it in the shower with them and just use it on their own.
if I take a shower, I'm gonna leave my stuff at work. Because I don't,
Yeah,
that's how I.
you're correct about that, but you've got to think about what percentage of these people work for companies like Microsoft, for example. You live in Seattle, you commute to Microsoft, that's a pretty dang long bike ride. A lot of people aren't going to do that, but what we were kind of thinking more is the younger, like riding to college, watching it before class,
Yeah.
going to a startup, most of these companies don't have shower rooms and stuff like that.
Do you have a sense of the percentage of the commuters that you're talking about?
I would love to get a sense of that, but we didn't actually delve in that deep because there were other things we wanted.
I'm cut Mark.
No, you're fine. So the next part I was going to talk about was that I thought it was awesome you put a little hook on there for like a carabiner. Like, I think that's kind of cool to hook that. But I'm also thinking about, once again, as a commuter, and I ride with a backpack, and sometimes I'm like, that's too much for me. And like sticking a pair of headphones in my backpack is like, no, like that's just an extra thing I don't want to carry with me, right? And so to carry around a bar of soap every day just doesn't, like, I'll use whatever happens to be there. And honestly, most days I get to work and I don't need soap. What I think that, and I think you guys touched on this when you were, because you guys came around and asked me and some other folks and so forth. You guys are really looking at, more guys that are like using and doing stuff to their bikes, whether they're guys that are working in shops, or the folks that are over at next to Bobby Morris and they're playing, what's the little like, polo game, right? Because they're always messing around with their bike. They're turning it from a fixie into a single speed or whatever, so they're always getting greasy. So that kind of, there's a niche that you guys are almost at. You just gotta get there.
The thing is, when you were talking about weight and on your backpack, I talked to one of our people that we surveyed, and he said that he knows he has a lot of friends, including himself, that have like a bike clip underneath their seat, and he said that this would be the perfect size to actually put into that. It's like a little bag thing that you clip under your seat. So
Like an extra tire bag.
Right. So we actually made the size to be able to fit into one of those bags to put it. So
You guys definitely thought about a lot of things. Totally, I'm not breaking you apart. I'm
oh
commending
yeah,
you
no,
for
no,
that.
I,
Yeah.
So the most positive thing first, which is, it's now been 4 years of watching your classmates ahead of you give presentations, and this was definitely one of the coolest ideas that, as Martin indicated and Gabe sort of echoed, I could actually see how you could build a real product out of this. Just having biked for a long time, it is at times, not all the time, you get the stupid chain grease on your hands, and that's not pleasant. And if you take a shower, you've solved the problem. So the most positive thing is definitely that, and I like the presentation. A lot of the slides were really cool. The logo's cool. I had a couple different points, but just first picking up on the actual product point, because I think it's the most important one. I mean, does that need water to be used? And if so, perhaps there's a niche, I don't know, where you could have something that goes in your bike bag and it's more liquid and you could just use it on your hands or something. I don't know if that's doable.
Kind of like Purell for
What?
bikers.
we made it to a lot of the people that we surveyed had comments, and they actually talked about that, and they said that they wouldn't mind using it, like using their water bottle and just spraying a little water on their hands and washing their hands.
And if you're commuting and you're a biker, then you would have water with you, presumably, and so then that would be.
But have you ever tried to get the chain grease off? Sometimes it doesn't take a small amount of water.
I tried it with
How much water?
We tried it with the
well, we had a
motor
thing, we just
oil
got it
from a car dealership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just need a tiny, like a little sliver, and we got the bike chain, and wrapped it, and it worked very fast.
So then the second thing, just again related to the product, which is and obviously it's a first version, and it's cool, and I love the idea of using 3D printing, but that's fairly, bikers are always, at least you always want to have like the smallest thing with you. That's pretty big, both in terms of the case and the soap itself. Did you guys?
So as the guy who did the 3D printing, that was honest. To be perfectly honest, I overshot because I didn't want to be left with no prototype today.
Right. So it's a prototype.
So we get scale.
But you like the idea of going smaller.
I like the idea of as tight as possible on this case because obviously it's a weight efficient.
Yeah.
And we wanted to although we had a specific demographic, we didn't want to limit ourselves, because if we made it too small to only be on-the-go repair, then people working in shops would have no use for it.
You could have multiple. You could have multiple. You could have said in your future expansion slide multiple sizes, small and large. Just since it looks like a ton of people have their hands up, just give you one more thing, which is when you started the presentation, the logo was really cool, and then I saw the biking market and it's growing, and then I heard bike soap, and I wasn't sure until way later, like almost towards the end of the presentation, that it was bike soap for your hands. And I don't know if I just missed that, but that to me, that you should come right up front and say, here's what we're doing, and then explain the rationale. Okay.
In your costs, did you factor in costs of labor?
We were thinking incredibly small scale for this, to be honest. We were not thinking beyond. we were trying to think in terms of a realistic product that we could make. So when we did these calculations, we were thinking, all right, what could we do? And we said we could make 6 soaps a day. So we were thinking as if we were doing the labor.
Megan?
I would love to see in your product expansion a container that actually snapped onto the bottom of the water bottle. So you've got storage of your water bottle, and your soap right under it, and then you take your water bottle with you when you go inside, and you have your soap right on the bottom.
That's a really good idea.
How many other place that you have to worry about storage of your
We were thinking about using magnets for the lid, and we would have done that given a couple more days, but just removing this lid, having this snap onto maybe any kind of water bottle, just like a little sticker or something, snap it on, that's a great idea.
Yeah, so I think you were just talking about this a little bit. Like, I noticed, I haven't looked at your case, but it looks like it comes off really easily. You have something to solve that, because I mean, I've 3D printed and I know it's really hard to get pieces to fit together, and especially to fit together and stay there. So,
We have sheet magnets that adhere, so we're going to cut them in a circle, adhere half to the bottom, half to the top, so it snaps on.
Matt, did you have a question?
Oh, that was mine.
Oh, okay. Megan?
One more question about the pumice. The pumice is, this seems like a really unique additive to soap. Is anybody else doing?
The
Yes.
Donkey label actually also has a soap. They have like 5 different soaps, all targeted to do different things. And one of them is a pumice soap exfoliant, interestingly enough.
We don't know if it's as fine. Our pumice, we bought 3 different types and we kind of tried which one would feel the best. So we got ours to be very fine, but it's still gritty in a sense that it will help scrub the grease, but it's not too coarse that it might scratch your hands in a sense. So we have a unique style of pumice that we use.
We got the idea, or at least I initially, from a soap called Volcano that was marketed toward auto mechanics. And we thought, hey, they're getting grease off their hands, we are too. So we could apply the same thing, but on a lesser scale, as to not actually injure hands.
Becca?
3 different people trying to follow up. Okay.
This is actually a more science-related question. Did you test, like, since you're getting grease off, did you test, like, the pH of that soap at all, like, relating to other?
Why would that matter for getting grease off?
Well, because I would assume you'd be able to stronger base. I'm just curious if you tested pH at all.
We didn't do any testing for pH though, because we didn't think we would have to really get any grease off. That could be a good practical.
So just because it is so unique with the packaging, there are a couple of things that I have questions about. One of them being soap is made to get wet, and if that's going to go hand in hand with things that don't want to get wet, how are you with magnets avoiding the situation of like, oh, I'm hurriedly, I'm trying to work, I'm washing my hands, oh, I put water's in the soap in the container and it dripping on things.
Well, magnets we were planning to use, I mean, when they connect, they're like made of foam, so they're pretty much airtight. But yeah, if there was any leak or the case came off, that would be very bad. Ideally, our initial prototype was actually using a screw system. Screw the cap on pretty easily.
But we
The
thought that
AutoCAD we were using.
if you're all greasy and wet, that unscrewing and screwing would kind of be
But
inefficient.
an ideal method actually that I just thought of now is a suction where you get the lid, has a little suction ring right, you push it on, it stays sucked on. You press a button on the top and it comes off.
And our market had mixed responses to the ideas of screwed-on lids and snapped-on. It was like 9 and 9, I think, in the survey that we did. So, there was mixed response between the 2 ideas, and I think that, like, in terms of, especially how slick that is, in terms of screwing that on and off, that would be a hassle if you had grease or anything on your hands.
Yeah, I'm just gonna have a second follow-up question for that, is that okay?
Yeah.
So, grease is gross, yes, established. So washing, if you're gonna use a soap a lot and you're washing your hands with grease and you put it into a very sealed container, because it's not something that's normally done with soap, so sealed and it's using like dirty grease, have you at all tested the effects on how the soap reacts to that kind of situation? Because when I think of soap, I never think, oh, it's like kind of airing out, but then it stays like kind of buggy and gross.
So the way the soap reacts to dirt and oils is it actually, I'm pretty sure if you know how soap is made, it actually bonds to it. So it pretty much locks it down in that sense. We're not worried about molding or scents or any of that stuff. I mean, it might look a little bit weird, but you can wash out when you get home. So that wasn't actually a huge worry for us.
So if you guys are planning to use this kind of just like taking, like while you're biking, fixing something not at like home and not at work or not wherever you're going, the soap, when you wash it off, is the soap gonna like be damaging to the environment? Because you're not putting it in someplace, like it's going into a storm drain, like into the lake, into the trees, like have you thought about possibilities of the environment with the soap?
Well, okay, so with our soap and our brand and everything in general, we were trying to prioritize usability. So first and foremost, we had something that would work. But, you know, through looking at our ingredients, we don't have anything particularly toxic that we would find. Okay, as a guy, so it wouldn't be great for the environment, but we have other priorities. And it's also. I'm more worried about like the amount of coal that our country burns. And that issue that like you're not using too much soap per use. So it's not you're not dumping like a waste level.
Well, okay, alright.
When you wash your hands.
I'm not concerned about it, and if our market goes to concern, then, I mean, we would probably have to change it because they are our market.
Okay, Martin,
Just the sodium hydroxide in it isn't, like there isn't a lot of it in it. There's mostly just coconut oil and olive oil. So when you wash your hands with it, not only do you not use the whole thing when you wash your hands with it, but you use like maybe like a small layer every time you wash your hands with it, so it's not really.
Guys, it's a chemical reaction.
Yeah.
There's no sodium hydroxide in
Yeah.
there. Come on.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm
Martin.
Yeah, you see our ratio?
Let's stop talking about
You
this.
see our
Move on to
ratio?
the next one.
Martin.
So, yeah, detergents are a legitimate concern, but with what you guys are using and the concentrations and the materials you're actually using, it's like Dr. Bronner's. It's like a natural bit of fun. You're not like pouring, anyway. This is a comment that's kind of going to not just this group, but all groups. Candles, soaps, whatever. Every presentation that I've seen so far, I haven't seen one person like wash their hands or light a candle or like or bring a greasy chain and show what it looks like.
You use your bike to school today?
I didn't bike to school today. You should have asked me to do that. But what I'm saying, like, don't you guys think that that would be like you're trying to sell a product with a specific use, so like show that use. If I'm trying to sell you a $500 baseball bat, I'm going to ask you to hit a baseball with it, right? Like,
I mean, I think we are.
I'm not necessarily going after you guys. I'm just saying,
No, I
like,
know.
we should think about this.
And I'm just responding like we're high schoolers who were asked to put together a PowerPoint.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
And that's what we did.
I hear you.
And we tried to make it as professional and well put together as possible. It would have been cool to have that creative element.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been a great idea if we had come up with it. But we were thinking very two-dimensionally, like this is our final block, and so this is what we did.
There is FYI an innovations course that's right now in the senior year, so any feedback you're getting, in high school, you can use it on the next
And just so you guys know, like, you guys have done a really good job,
Yes,
and so
excellent.
we're like picking apart little things like
Yeah.
and it's kind of fun to do, but you guys have done a very good job.
This is excellent. No, there's no value if we don't give you suggestions and ideas and things to think about. So $875 on the financial side, what does that represent? And why, like if you actually even have demand for this among students, why is 6 bars a day okay even as an initial
Okay,
run?
so the $875 would be our fixed cost, which would be things like a blender to blend the soap in,
Yeah.
or a scale, or something like that. Just things that we need to buy once, but then we have it and we don't need it ever.
Okay. And is 6 bars a day just you guys making the soap initially? That's what
Yeah,
you were capable
that's
of making?
And that was also an estimate to pay back our fixed costs in 1 month.
I
So
understand.
obviously, we can scale that.
Right, so so just the suggestion is if this actually, like if it's an idea you really like and wanted to do, what you want to do as part of your last, go from here slide, I don't know what you guys called it, but something like that. So you'd want to think about what your cost might be if you produce more of it and stuff like that. Anyway, it was really impressive.
Couple quick things, I know we're getting short on time. So you guys had said that you originally were going to put lemon juice in it, and then that you found that in the process that it was neutralizing the sodium hydroxide at wherever you were mixing it. And you said something about the pumice cutting grease. My question is pumice an exfoliant or a grease cutter? And if you were going to do something moving forward, is there ways that you could test mixing in the lemon juice differently to potentially still be a grease cutter but not interfere with your sonification process?
So pumice and our soap kind of acts as both. It is an exfoliant, so it leaves your hands feeling soft and kind of gets rid of the dead skin. And also, it's not necessarily a grease cutter as an acid would be, it's just kind of a scrubbing component. Like if you have grease and you have a surface and you have a sponge, it kind of gets in the cracks and kind of works with the soap in the water to kind of get that out. But, I mean, that's pretty much the function that has it.
Chemically, in terms of adding the lemon, we actually, there's pretty obvious way we do that. We mix the soap thoroughly. We let those bonds form between the base and the fatty acids. And then later we would add in our acid because it would just be free flowing and have nothing to bond to. There is the concern that the actual soap, the acid would still bond with the base though, because, so we're really not sure how we'd actually handle that. That would take a lot more effort and research to be able to maybe figure that out.
And my other question for you guys, so you're talking about a soap that's super transportable and used by cyclists. I'm wondering if you guys have considered sponsorship at all, sponsoring athletes that are using it.
Sure. That'd be
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. We just considered it when you proposed it. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Athlete sponsorship.
Oh, it's not.
Yeah.
It's a great marketing.
I mean, we did test the size on biking jerseys, so, and it fits in the little pocket in the back, so we could always like sponsor, like Tour de France and other bikers and have them, like carry it in their jersey or something.
Start love.
Great, well, thank you guys very much.
Nice work.